Spectrovision Radio.
Welcome to Gods, Ghosts, and UFOs, where we talk about all the things they said weren't real. My name is Jordan, and I'm normally here with my co-host Mallory, but she couldn't make it today. But we are joined by a very special guest who is here today for his second time on the show. That's right, folks. It's Richard Hatem. For
Yay!
the cheering himself in his entry.
How many people have you had back twice? How many doubles have you had so far?
Only a couple, honestly. There's the godmother of our podcast, Kelly Chase, and then actual angel Robin Lassiter, who's been back a couple times. But I think that's just about it. So you are in a rarefied crowd, my friend.
Okay. I want it to be like
should...
Saturday Night Live, where if I come back 5 times, I get to go into a club.
Absolutely. There will definitely be a GGU club down the line. We just have to record for the next several years.
Okay.
For the vanishingly small number of people who don't know who you are, this beautiful man is the screenwriter behind the 2002 film adaptation of The Mothman Prophecies, starring Richard Gere and Laura Linney, and he currently hosts the fantastic Richard Hatem's Paranormal Bookshelf, which is, I'm just going to read the description on the website here because it's perfect. A podcast that feels like discovering a secret diary. Each episode unravels the mysteries of a chosen book and Richard's life, bringing together the excitement of the paranormal and the warmth of personal storytelling. And I can confirm, I've listened to the show. It's fantastic. I love it. This is one of the reasons I wanted to have you back. So, Richard, I am dizzily delighted to have you back on the show.
Thank you, sir. I am dizzily delighted to be here.
Okay, before we get into the juicy meat of this episode, a quick reminder to our listeners that we are recording this live on Substack. If you want to see future live recordings, go to ggupodcast.substack.com. That's, again, ggupodcast.substack.com. I have it on sterling authority that a free or paid subscription can cure any chronic illness and unlock unprecedented wealth and popularity for the subscriber. So you have that to look forward to. All right, Richard, we ask everyone this. What is something most people don't think is real, but you do?
Okay. Now, you did tell me that question ahead of time. So I have no excuse to be as unprepared as I am. Something that people told me isn't true, but that I believe is true. That's the question, right?
That is the question. And it could be something that you have always believed is true, but that very few people believe is true, or real, I should say, or something that you used to not think was real, but you had an experience that convinced you otherwise.
Okay. This is a question that comes up a lot when you host a podcast about the paranormal. It comes up on the podcast. It comes up when you're having conversations with people, with listeners. If you do an AMA, people are like, they want to know kind of where you fall in this thing. And I've always been very open about a couple of things. One, I have never had what I think is a truly supernatural experience. Okay. So I'm not I've no near-death experience, no alien encounter, no ghost sighting, no out-of-body experience, nothing that when I hear someone else talk about their lived experience, I want to hear more. Those are the stories you want to hear. Tell me about your near-death experience. Tell me about the alien abduction experience. And it's those people who can say, I believe in life after death because of my lived experience. I believe there are other non-human intelligences in the universe because of my lived experience. Okay.
Sure.
So when people ask me, do you believe in aliens? I'm like, well, I mean, I don't not believe in them. I think there may be some other intelligence out there, but I've never experienced that. So I can't call myself, it would take a giant leap of belief to, and I have never had an after-death communication. There are people who have had their dead relatives just suddenly, years later sometimes, show up in their kitchen and go, I'm good, everything's good, you go be happy, we good, bye-bye. And they're like, didn't know it was going to happen, didn't know it could happen, it happened, now I believe in that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
all of which is to say, it forced me, when you asked me the question, to really go, well, then based on my lived experience, what do I believe in? And, that people said wasn't true. I'll tell you that I did not come from a family where therapy was something that anyone believed in.
Okay. I like where this is going.
I was never, this was not something that was held up as a way to, to examine your life and experience your issues. And so it was with a bit of a leap of faith in terms of the way I was raised to go into therapy. And after having the lived experience of therapy for 25 years, for me, it's been enormously effective. So if and it was not ever anything that my parents were thrilled about, but
Sure.
but it certainly worked for me and has worked for me in a lot of different ways. And I talk about it on my podcast, and I have been gratified and a little surprised how many people say, "Hey, thanks for talking about therapy." And that
Mm.
and like admitting that you're in therapy and you've gone to therapy because it's something that I struggled with and I for years didn't do. And I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. So in a way, my lived experience, as shared openly in the show, has helped someone else. So I think, oh, okay, that's cool. um I can continue on with a couple other things. Do you want to hear a couple other things?
Of course. Well, first, I'd love to respond to, I guess, editorialize a little on what you've already shared,
Please
because
do.
I think that there's something really great actually about you talking about that subject, and like specifically because you're talking about having come from a place where basically in your personal culture, whatever that was, like your family and the community that you grew up in, you were raised in sort of the paradigm that believed that therapy wasn't quote unquote real, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so then you've discovered through, as you said, lived experience. This is, by the way, a funny. I use the words lived experience as well sometimes. I try not to though, because I'm like, well, what other kinds of experience are there? Like all
Wow.
experience is lived. It's like,
All experiences happen while you're technically
yeah,
alive.
exactly. Well, supposedly. I mean, maybe this is something else we could talk about. Anyway, but so the point is that, yes, this is a show about all the things they said weren't real. But it's interesting to me now, though, that the dominant cultural perception is that therapy is very much real, and everyone. I mean, to the point that now there's such a thing as therapy culture, which I think is kind of like become a little bit watered down or diluted in terms of the effectiveness of what it's trying to do. So there's now an abundance of belief in this thing that I would say for a good while, a lot of people, a lot of cultures were just like, that's not real. And so that's interesting because I think that we can see the same kinds of things happening in a lot of other domains. And it's kind of the point, like one of the major points of this podcast is to say, hey, if there's something that you think isn't real, maybe just consider that lots of other things that people said weren't real turned out to be real. And so we're sort of I'm kind of a maximalist, realist, I would say, in terms of thinking that most of what people talk about is somehow to some degree real, even if I haven't personally lived the experience, so to speak. But please, Richard, go on. I want to hear more.
I'll give you one more sort of secular one, and then I'll bump up against one that's a little supernatural.
Let's go for it. Yeah, great.
The secular one is, I grew up, I'll say ahead of time that my parents and my aunts and uncles and my grandparents and all of my relatives have always been, my cousins, everyone sort of overwhelmingly team Richard. You're awesome. You can do whatever you want. But at the same time, no one was saying that because they had ever done that.
Mm,
I think it was sort of a thing that you said. It's sort of like when I was going to school in the 70s, and I was a little kid. It's like anyone can be president,
hmm
and you would hear that, and you knew that the message was you know don't limit yourself, but really, when you then brought up what it was you were interested in and wanted to do, you got nothing but warnings, and sort of a head shake and a sharp intake of breath through clenched teeth. It's the old actor. It's tough. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, writer, Hollywood, comedy, movie. Yeah. And then, so I was getting two messages at the same time. One was, hey, everything's cool and you can do whatever you want, but not really, because no one in my family had really done that. No one had ever taken a big swing and connected with the ball. In fact, the Hatem side of my family is all about path of least resistance. I missed the bus that day, so I took a different job. Yeah, that was 40 years ago. It's fine. It's just like, no one was coming from a genuine place of, no, miraculous things can happen in your life and you can make your dreams come true. So I was sort of the Magellan, I think, of my family in a way, by going, I'm not going to take the conservative route. I'm not going to play it safe. I'm going to try to do the thing that no one can do, and no one has done. I'm going to try to write scripts and sell them and not just do it once, but have a lifelong career based on an impulse inside of me that, other than fear. All of my, my parents, aunts, uncles, but my uncles especially, they were all like, everyone was like teaching school. And I think they were doing that because it's like, look, you only work 9 months a year. You're in a strong union. It's always, the state mandates education. There's always going to be a job, just shut up, take your money, keep the kids in their seats for 6 hours and go home. And then you're done. Okay. No, not one of them ever came to me and said, the joy of teaching, my God, molding young minds. They all just rolled their eyes and were like, the principal, the administration, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. What I believe now is, weirdly, you can make your dreams come true. You just have to, and I'm not even a guy who's like, well, you have to have talent. Yeah, kind of. You just have to decide it's going to happen. And every writer I know and everyone who's succeeded in Hollywood comes from this place of, at a certain point, I just said, fuck it, there's no plan B. So plan A got to work. So here we go. Plan A. And I've got a friend who's like, has a Latin phrase that basically means, I will find a way or I will make a way. And that's what it is. So I'm like, I had this life. Look, I'm retired now. I'm not writing TV. I'm not writing movies. I'm doing this. I'm pursuing other things. But my professional career as a guy writing stuff that you see on TV or in a movie theater, that's over. I did it. I put 2 TV shows on the air. I wrote 2 movies that got made, which is like 4 more things than a lot of people who write their whole lives do.
Yeah. It puts you in a very, very rarefied percentile of Hollywood writers.
Yeah. I got lucky, but I kept at it. And I think it was both of those things: persistence, gratitude, luck. All 3 of those things came together. So it's like, I can now look at someone else in the face and go, yes, it can happen. Anyone can be president, except take out president and put in, a working member of the entertainment industry. Yeah. You can do it. It can happen. You don't need to take the conservative route in the career of your life. So that's another thing I believe.
Wow, what a great quote. What a great quote, Richard. You don't need to take the conservative path in the career of your life. I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah. There's an author named Kate Hall who just came out with a book called You Can Just Do Things. and
Oh,
it's
I love that.
it's excellent. It's an excellent book. It's exactly what you want out of out of that kind of book, which is that it's boiled down to its bare essences, and it's just this really wonderful chapter by chapter kind of examination of human agency and where it comes from and what it's made of and how you actually deploy it. And it's, no BS. It's just like this is how stuff actually works. And she's so good at calling out that very thing. The chapter I was reading last night literally was about the very thing you were talking about, which is this sort of like chronic human risk aversion that like we all
Yeah.
have this like person inside of us named like Melvin who's like, better not. That seems risky." And
Yeah.
so yeah.
It's better not, and it's also what I've learned over the years, which was always obvious to me, but I can now speak to it very honestly. Is it is to whatever degree your personal self-loathing sits at on a daily basis, because you can do things, yeah, and but and you can be you can be risky or risk averse, but there's also this thing inside you that's just, you don't deserve anything.
Mm,
You're ultimately, like, you can put on a good face to the world, but in the deepest part of your soul, you know that you're garbage and don't deserve anything good. And then you begin sort of dancing to that song. And it's like, well, if I truly am garbage, then I'm going to lower my sights way down, and again just sort of creep along the ground, until this whole thing wraps itself up.
yeah.
And so for people like me, that self-loathing, when it reaches, it's almost like the boiler in the Shining, in the basement, that that's the needle just goes into the red. When the self-loathing becomes so much that you almost can't go on living, it tilts over into grandiosity. and and then you're like, no, but I am so great, and I have this thing within me that can overcome all of the self-loathing, and I will crawl out of the canyon of my own horribleness, and I will burst across the sky like a firework. And that's the energy that then pulls you up just long enough to, like, get some work done in the day,
Yeah, yeah.
write a
The
few
two
pages.
that's that good 3 p.m. energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you've done the coffee, and you've had the food, and you took the nap, and now it's not time to start drinking. So it's like, okay. So the
Oh,
grandiosity, and then of course then therapy comes in, and what therapy does is it starts at, like, it starts cutting off it's like the top grade and the lowest grade in class. It's, cut off the top highs and the low lows, and let's see if we can get you living closer to the line,
yeah.
where you're not shit, but you also don't have to be magic wizard man. You can just kind of be you, and it's fine. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be great, but it doesn't make you terrible either. And so my entire life has been trying to get closer to that line of just normalcy, and see if I can still do the things that I love. Because
Yeah.
I'll toss this out. And I'm sorry, I know I'm going on and on, but it kind of, all these ideas bubble up when you ask a question in a particular way. And the number of writers, again, that I meet in my career, television and film, who are like, therapy. Now, they really don't believe in therapy, because they're like, you go to therapy and you get a little too sane, and then that
Mm,
craziness, that's the creative energy.
yeah.
If I went to therapy, I'd never write again. I'd be too healthy. I'd just go have a normal life. And boy, did I find out that's not true.
Oh my gosh, Richard, I have to tell you a story about when I went to grad school. I went to get my MFA in screenwriting in Boston. And the first day that I was there, I we were there was a little, graduate mixer with me and, a bunch of the other people in the department, including the 7 other writers that I went into the program with. And one of the one of the guys, I won't say his name, but one of the guys came up to me, and he said, "Let me get this straight. So you don't drink, and you don't smoke, and you don't do drugs. how the hell do you write? And I was
Yeah,
like,
come on.
and I wanted to tell him, like, I think I write a lot more.
You do. You
So,
absolutely do. You
yeah.
absolutely do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny because when I was in my 20s, I never drank. I never did anything. I mean, I talk so much about drinking now just because it's this fun thing I do as an adult in my 50s. But when I was trying to make my career in my 20s, I never drank because my fear was, well, what if I get drunk one night and then I write and it's good?
Oh, that's hilarious.
So, and also I was afraid of being out of control because I
Sure.
had to,
Yeah.
oh, I got to control everything. Got to
Yeah.
control me and you and the world.
Hmm.
But it was only later that I was like, okay, now I've reached cruising altitude. I can, signal the, a flight attendant and get a drink. Um, but yeah, that's the other belief is that, you need in the 90s in the film writing community, it was a very open thing. The biggest screenwriters, the ones who were writing the really big hits in the 90s, were like, dude, you got it, toke. You got it.
Yeah.
And maybe what you write is complete shit, but the next day you're going to find stuff in there that you never would have come up with. And then the next day, and it's like, nope, not necessarily, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I think everyone does what they need to get ahead. If you can do it with less external stuff, I think
Yeah.
it's better just because that's less you need to depend on.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a very, very common belief, especially among artists, perpetuated by artists, and certainly perpetuated by anyone who's not an artist, that in order to make art, you have to be unhinged in some way, or that you just have to you have to be subject to your vices or to some vices in order to like be real or be grounded or whatever. And it's interesting because in almost every case that I can think of, it's false. My wife's favorite musician by a huge margin is Tom Waits, and she likes to talk about how he was great from the beginning. The man was an absolute genius, but that his work got even more better, more critically acclaimed, more popular, just in every by every metric, better and better when he stopped drinking and got married and had some kids.
There you
So,
go.
and I think this is true over and over again. And many of my favorite artists produce their best work after they stopped being crazy. And anyway, so I think
Yeah.
it's all very So this speaks well of doing the therapy. It's like you're not going to lose your
Yeah.
edge if you become saner. Like you probably can maybe do even better work. Maybe. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so because there's the craft. I think early on, if you link the craft with the vice, they become entangled
Hmm.
to a degree, and then people self-medicate. I mean, that's the
Yep.
other thing is that it's like it is so, as a musician, as a performer, as a writer, I have so much anxiety that I have to self-medicate to get to a point. Well, I mean, there's the famous story about the Sex Pistols, my favorite band, where Steve Jones, then this is in the 70s, and Steve Jones, when they just became part of a band and he was performing, someone said, "Oh, you're a lot heavier than the other guys in the band, and you should lose some weight. So I'm going to send you to where all the models go, and they're going to give you some pills that are going to help you lose weight." Okay.
Okay.
And of course, these were uppers. It
Yeah.
was a Ritalin,
They were
basically.
amphetamines.
It
He
was
was
amphetamines, but it
he
was
was
like
giving
it
his
was that.
speed.
Yeah, it's like and so he started losing weight. But the other thing that happened was that his focus, because it was Adderall or whatever, it was in that
Sure.
family. His focus went up, so he suddenly was like, "I lost weight," but the joke was that no one thought was that I also stopped fucking around on the guitar and I started learning how to play the guitar. I played 12 hours a day. I couldn't stop. I was so focused on it and I became a great guitar player. And it's that fed my career. He's like, "No, look at me. I'm fat now. I got fat again, but I can play the fucking guitar."
That's That's so excellent. Oh man. All right. Well, um, before we end the free portion of the episode, and I ask you to stick around for our exclusive paid subscriber only epilogue.
Do I have to take something off for that?
Yes, but you can decide what.
Oh, okay, okay.
I felt a lot of resonance with what you said about earlier when you're like, I don't have any personal experiences of being exposed to, like, I haven't had a near death experience or contact with non-human intelligence or what have you. And I think for the most part that's true for me too. And the things that I believe that they said weren't real are based primarily on the stories and experiences other people have shared with me that I have found to be very, very
Yeah.
credible or very believable, either because I know that person very, very personally or just my gut, basically, which, is its own kind of, experience. But yeah, so but just as a little bit of the context setting for that
Yeah.
question
Uh,
overall.
well, and it's funny because it's like, well, what are the definitions here? Belief is, how do you define that word? Now, what I realize also is that belief does take into account faith. So my definition of belief is probably a little too strict,
Mm,
even for the most common usage of the word. Belief means something that you take to be true even without material proof.
okay.
But again, I've always defined it in a slightly more, you know, fine context because I want to separate myself from the people who have really walked the path and us, posers. I always say, I'm when it comes to the paranormal, I'm the Salieri staring at the Mozarts. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, Whitley Strieber,
Yeah.
you're the real thing. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll listen
Yeah.
to you, but I'm just pretending over here.
I can
So
totally relate. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like so what I find myself saying is, after all these years, after all the books I've read, all the people I've talked to, here's what I strongly suspect.
Mm,
But if we want to sub in belief, I can say that of the supernatural things, weirdly, I believe in a form of human energy that expresses itself as psychokinesis.
mm, okay.
The reason is that, psychokinesis is often looked at like, well, what are you saying? Like in a lab, you can, make a pencil roll across the table, or in Las Vegas, you can control the dice.
Mm,
You're somehow your mind is changing physical reality.
yeah.
Um, it's like, yeah, maybe, but I will say that I think seance phenomenon
Mm,
and I think poltergeist phenomenon share a sort of crossover in that it has something to do with human energy that takes a form we don't understand yet. I do I do believe in seance phenomenon. I do think that physical things can happen in a room that appear to be materially impossible
mm,
because a group of people are expressing a kind of energy that is somehow allowing that to happen.
sure.
And you'll hear seance groups talk about it all the time where it's like, well, the first year didn't work, but then Joe left and Stephanie came in, and suddenly that night we started getting stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, so you
Right.
found the right chemical
Yeah.
composition for what that needed to be. Again, what's my lived experience? Well, it's metaphorical, but it's the writer's room.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
It's the magic of this group of people sort of subconsciously hoping that something happens, and then after a while it does. And some rooms work a little better than other rooms, and sometimes everyone knows why, and everyone knows, the person who's kind of putting the kibosh on the whole thing. We're all going this way, and that person's going the other way. And for whatever their reasons are, they're killing it. And the
Hmm.
minute they leave, well, okay, now we can all have fun. And it's so weird that it all comes down to play. It all comes down to just what's fun. We're all just trying to have fun here. Like don't make it. I've heard about some writers' rooms. I don't know how they get anything done where it's like, no, you don't speak until you have a fully worked out pitch. I'm like, you're going to stare at me till I get an erection? See ya. No, I'm going to go in the other room where we're all having a good time. And the number of times people have said, you know what we did today? For 6 hours, we goofed around. All we did was tell stories about our family, just goofed around. We didn't do an ounce of work. We didn't look at the board. We didn't talk about the characters. We didn't do anything. And in the last 15 minutes of the room, we broke the whole episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that 15 minutes would not have been possible in the first 15 minutes of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the thing that I love about, writing, especially because I'm familiar with that, medium of art more than any other. But that it's, this is the reason that I really, really, really loathe trying to charge by the hour. I write professionally sometimes. Like sometimes someone will hire me to write something. Right now, I'm actually working on a new podcast series, and I'm writing the scripts. They drafted the sort of outlines of the episodes the way they wanted, but they're not working. And so they brought me in to write the actual episodes. And they're supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be a lot of, it's a back and forth storytelling, two hosts just like telling each other stories. And I just, I try to have some idea of, just for the sake of being able to have some sanity and trying to get my life in order, to have some idea of how long a script will take me to write. You have to have some idea, hopefully, but You're often wrong anyway. But like the idea of charging by the hour for writing is just, it so doesn't work. It so doesn't work. Cause I'm like, well, the first one I wrote for these people, I didn't do anything on it for 3 days, and I just thought about it a lot. And then I thought about it all the time. I thought about it for 72 hours off and on, in between taking care of my kids and going to Walmart and but then when I sat down to actually start working on it, it was like, oh yeah, I'm cooking, I've got the first act down. Like I know what to do from here. And I'm like, how am I going to charge by the hour for that? This is insane. And so
were they asking to charge by the hour?
No.
Oh, okay.
To their credit,
like, well, wait a second.
To their credit, we established a per project, per script fee.
Yeah.
But like, but so often, when I'm working with people on writing for different projects, they want to know what my hourly rate is. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you my hourly rate. Let's talk about the project, and then you can decide how much you can afford to pay me. Because like, there's I may end up working on this thing for $2 an hour, if I
right.
Or maybe I'll get lucky and I'll make the whole fee in 1 hour, which would be great. But like, I can't predict that. Anyway.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, you can't quantify it that way. It's I wish you could, and writers wish
everyone
you could too.
Wishes you could. Yeah.
Like most writers, because that's why everyone's always asking Stephen King, like, what's your routine? What's your schedule? And a writer might tell you, well, I sit down, at 9 a.m. and I work till about 11:30. Then I take lunch. Then I come back and I do another afternoon session. You're listening to this like, okay, 11:30. What does this mean? What are you doing? You're not Stephen King. Most of us need to just sort of think about stuff for a long time. Some days it's mostly thinking, very little writing. Other days it just happens. It's like it would be so great to have some external, parameters and walls and stuff, but they just mostly don't exist. So you just
this is why Hollywood executives are so desperate to replace writers with AI, because you can very specifically measure token cost.
Right.
Okay. I want to say, Richard, that I had high hopes and high expectations for this conversation. So hopefully we can, make something happen in the epilogue.
It's the last 15 minutes, man. I told you that's where I shine.
No, honestly, this has been fantastic. And before we jump into the paywalled part of our conversation, where you get to drop even more F-bombs if you want. I want to say anybody who hasn't gone to check out your podcast should go do that. Richard Hatem's Paranormal Bookshelf. Fantastic. And also you're going on tour soon, right?
Yeah, going to do a live episode that has never and will never be recorded. So you can come. Ooh. It's a secret episode, so it's like, only you have to show up live to see it. So really quickly, Sunday, September 13th, Toronto, Canada. Come see me. Monday, the 14th is Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tuesday, the 15th is Chicago. Wednesday, the 16th is Cleveland. And Thursday, the 17th is Pittsburgh. Go to richardhatemsparanormalbookshelf.com to get the actual tickets for the locations. And then that weekend, Saturday the 19th and Sunday the 20th, I will be in Point Pleasant, West Virginia at the annual Mothman Festival, where I will do a live free talk in the afternoon. And then I will do another secret show that night that's a separate ticket. So, yeah, in that week, you can come see me live. And then I'll hang out with you and we'll, have a drink.
I'm noticing a pattern in your tour schedule, Richard. It is that you have not one single day off.
Okay. Friday, we sort of have off.
Okay, that's good.
Such an idiot. Why did I do it that way? I'm gonna learn.
Yeah, I mean, you this is the first live show you've done for the show?
No. Last year I did the Mothman Festival, did a live show, and then I went northeast. I hit Washington, Brooklyn, and Long Island.
Gotcha. So you don't have any excuse. You absolutely should have learned your lesson by now. Then
I well, no, because I was so upset back then because we built in too many open days.
Oh,
so then I was like,
overcorrected.
I've got nothing to do tonight. So now I overcorrected. So now, and just so you know, because Portland and Seattle are big cities for me, I am gonna go there. I just don't know when, but it's gonna be soon. I swear to you. Believe it. I believe.
No matter what anybody says.
No matter what.
Okay, well, one last thing before we cut off the free portion. Please, everyone, go give us a review. Thank you. A like, a comment, literally anything. The algorithm isn't going to feed itself, people, so please help, etc. Last thing, we've been getting some great emails at godsghostsufos@gmail.com, but we want more. So if you want to join us to share your own experience with something they said wasn't real, or you want to tell us about that weird thing growing on the back of your knee, you have our email address, so please use it. And finally, to our paid supporters on Substack and Patreon, we love you forever, or at least for as long as you keep giving us money. And we'll see you in the epilogue.